After the car accident, I filed for divorce from my wife, the traffic police captain. As we walked out of City Hall, she looked at me with confusion and asked, "Is it because I saved Julian first during the accident and left you aside?" I nodded calmly, and panic instantly flickered across her face. In the early spring of Lakewood, the wind still carried the lingering chill of late frost as I stepped out of City Hall. I clutched the dark red divorce certificate in my hand. The texture against my fingertips was rough, much like the self-esteem I had worn down repeatedly over the 3 years of this marriage. Suddenly, a sharp cramp seized my stomach, followed by a dull ache from the fractured ribs in my chest. It had been a full 48 hours since the accident, and I had not gone to the hospital. I just bought 2 painkillers at a pharmacy, because at the scene of that horrific crash, my wife, Evelyn, the traffic police captain, had not even spared me a single glance. "Liam, let us talk." A cold voice came from behind me. I stopped and turned around. Evelyn stood there in her crisp, dark blue police uniform, which made her look even more commanding and sharp, as cold and untouchable as a piece of flawless porcelain. Her eyes were always so piercing, as if they could see through every traffic violator's lies, yet they never noticed the gauze beneath my shirt, soaked through with blood that had already begun to stick to my skin. "We have already got the certificate." "What is there to talk about?" I said calmly, looking at her. Evelyn frowned slightly, that habitual condescending scrutiny surfacing again. She seemed unaccustomed to my unruffled tone. In her mind, I, Liam, was supposed to be the one waiting at home wearing an apron, always gentle and forbearing, the full-time husband. "You are still throwing a tantrum," she said, taking half a step closer, her tone tinged with weariness and impatience. "Is it just because I saved Julian first during the accident and left you aside?" I looked at her delicate face and suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Yes, I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn froze. She clearly had not expected me to admit it so bluntly. In her script, I was supposed to grovel for an explanation or bitterly accuse her, not act as if I were discussing some trivial matter unrelated to me. "Liam, be reasonable," she sighed, as if she had found the root of the problem, her tone shifting back to a lecturing one. How urgent was the situation back then? Julian's car was hanging on the edge of the guardrail. He has severe phobia, and the river was right below. If I had not pulled him out first, he would have had a mental breakdown. And you just hit the airbag. Aside from a few minor scrapes, you could still get out and walk around. As a man, can you not be a little more magnanimous? I looked down at the floor tiles beneath my feet. The cracks still held remnants of last night's rain. Her so-called walking around was because the moment the truck slammed into us, I had forcibly twisted the steering wheel, turning my driver's seat into the point of impact. Amid the thunderous crash of metal, I used my last shred of consciousness to unbuckle my seatbelt and stumble out of the car, just to make sure she was safe. But when I walked up to her covered in blood, the heroic traffic police captain was tightly holding Julian, who had collapsed on the ground, whispering soothing words to him, without even sparing me a sidelong glance. "Magnanimous," I repeated the word, a bitter smile curling at the corner of my mouth. "Evelyn, do you know that is the highest compliment you have given me in 3 years?" "What do you mean?" Her gaze instantly turned icy. "Liam, do not be sarcastic. I know you are upset. Julian just came back from abroad. He has no foundation in Lakewood. As an old classmate, it is only natural for me to look out for him a bit more. As for the divorce, I hope you will calm down in a few days and we will go get remarried. Evelyn's family cannot do without you."
"My dad's medication and all those trivial household matters, you handle them best."
I looked at her as if she were a species I had never known before. In her eyes, my worth as a husband was nothing more than a convenient butler for her family and a private nurse for her father. No need. I turned around, my back to her, gazing at the sparse crowd in the City Hall square. "Evelyn, the life-saving favor your father gave me 3 years ago, I have repaid it in full by slaving away like a beast of burden. From this moment on, I owe you nothing, and I owe your family nothing." "Liam, stop right there." Evelyn's voice rose a few notches, laced with the fury of being defied. Just then, a silver-white Porsche screeched to a halt arrogantly at the entrance of City Hall, tires squealing. The door swung open and Julian stepped out, clutching a bouquet of vibrant red roses. He was dressed in a tailored high-end suit, his hair meticulously styled, and a faint, almost imperceptible smirk of provocation hung on his slightly effeminate face. "Evelyn, are the formalities done?" Julian strode over quickly, naturally positioning himself beside Evelyn as if he were the rightful partner. When his gaze swept over the divorce certificate in my hand, a flicker of triumph flashed in his eyes. "Brother Liam, I'm really sorry. Because of me, things have come to this between you and Evelyn." Julian's tone was sincere, but his hand casually draped over Evelyn's shoulder. Evelyn was just doing her duty. She is a cop, after all. Helping the weak and rescuing the distressed is her calling. And you, how can you force her into a divorce over something so trivial? A real man with such a narrow mind will have a hard time making his way in society. Evelyn did not push Julian's hand away. She just stared coldly at me, as if waiting for me to apologize to Julian or beg for her forgiveness. I said nothing. I simply stood there quietly, watching the pair before me. The pain in my chest grew sharper, and I knew it was a sign of internal bleeding. My vision began to blur slightly, but I kept my back straight. I had endured for 3 years, suppressed myself for 3 years, hiding the Liam who once ruled the business world and made countless enemies tremble inside a mediocre shell. All because on his deathbed, old Arthur had held my hand and said, "Liam, Evelyn has a proud nature. Take care of her." Now that dying wish could be thrown into the trash. "Liam, Julian is talking to you. Where are your manners?" Evelyn's brow furrowed deeper when I did not respond. I laughed. It was the first time in 3 years I had laughed so freely, so coldly. Manners are for people, not for animals. "Who are you calling an animal?" Julian's face flushed crimson. He stepped forward, lowering his voice to a whisper in my ear. "Liam, you are nothing now but a washed-up dog, stripped of everything. Without Evelyn's family, you cannot even get a sip of water in Lakewood. Get lost while you still can, or I will make sure you disappear from this city." I turned my head, meeting his sinister eyes. "Is that so?" I replied calmly, my tone terrifyingly steady. "Then let us see who disappears first." Evelyn sensed the tension between us. She yanked Julian away, looking at me with disgust. "Liam, you have disappointed me. I thought you were just mediocre, but now you have become this extreme and narrow-minded. Julian's company is about to partner with the world-class Shaolong Group. His future is something you, a man who only knows how to cook and shop, could never imagine. Get out before I decide to detain you for disrupting a public official's work." I did not spare her another glance. I turned and walked step by step toward the intersection outside City Hall. With every step, my lungs burned like fire. Evelyn stood on the steps, watching that lonely, thin figure retreat. For some reason, her heart tightened inexplicably. For 3 years, no matter how late she came home, that man always left a light on and served her a bowl of steaming hot soup. But now that retreating figure walked away with a resolve so cold and detached, as if it intended to sever every trace of the past 3 years entirely. "Evelyn, forget about him. This kind of man knows you are soft-hearted. Come on, I booked your favorite French restaurant to celebrate you being single again." Julian tugged at her hand, his face full of tenderness. Evelyn took a deep breath, suppressing the inexplicable panic rising in her chest. "Let us go." Just as they were about to get into the car, a low, dense roar suddenly erupted from the intersection not far away. It was not the sound of an ordinary sports car. It was the beastly growl of a top-tier armored engine. As a traffic cop, Evelyn's professional instincts made her turn to look. A column of black vehicles was crossing the plaza in an almost domineering formation. Leading the pack were 3 black Hummer armored cars, and at the center of the convoy, a custom Rolls-Royce Phantom was flanked. The silver spirit of ecstasy on the hood gleamed coldly in the sunlight. It was a sight she had never seen before. The convoy slowly pulled over at the curb, blocking Julian's Porsche. Julian wanted to lose his temper, but when he saw the black and gold license plate on the Rolls-Royce, he froze in place, cold sweat streaming down his back. That was the mark of the top-tier elite from the capital circle. Under Evelyn's stunned gaze, the door of the middle Rolls-Royce opened, and an elderly man in a tailcoat, with graying hair but sharp eyes, quickly stepped out. Ignoring all the stares around him, he walked straight toward the slightly disheveled man standing by the roadside. That man was Liam, the one Evelyn had just pushed away, dismissing as a mediocre burden. The old man stopped 3 steps in front of Liam, and then, under the disbelieving eyes of everyone, he bent deeply at the waist, his back parallel to the ground. "Young master, this old servant arrived late. Please punish me." His voice was low, but in the empty plaza it exploded like a thunderclap. Liam, who had been slightly hunched, slowly straightened his back. His once dull eyes became deep and sharp, like a blade drawn from its sheath, instantly cutting through all the previous meekness. He took the black trench coat the old man handed him, draped it over his shoulders, casually covering the blood-stained old shirt. "Uncle Sam, did you bring the things?" Liam's voice was no longer soft. It carried the weight of someone long accustomed to authority. "Yes." The seal of the president of the Lakewood branch of the Shaolong Group, and the order to unfreeze all assets under your name. Uncle Sam respectfully handed over a dark gold ring. Liam took the ring and slowly slid it onto the middle finger of his left hand. He turned his head, and from a dozen meters away, he coldly looked at Evelyn and Julian on the steps. At that moment, Evelyn felt as if her breath was being choked off by an invisible hand. It was a look she had never seen in Liam's eyes before. No warmth, no resentment, only the indifferent gaze of someone looking down at ants. "Evelyn, is that Liam?" Julian's voice trembled. The red roses in his hand fell to the ground, scattered by the wind. Evelyn did not answer. She watched Liam get into the Rolls-Royce, watched the massive black convoy recede like a tide. Only when the cars had completely disappeared did she realize her hands and feet had turned icy cold. "Liam, who exactly is he?" she murmured to herself. Meanwhile, in the smoothly moving back seat of the Rolls-Royce, Liam leaned against the leather seat, his face pale to the point of translucence. "Young master, your complexion is off." Uncle Sam noticed the anomaly through the rear-view mirror, his voice suddenly urgent. "Are you injured?" That day of the car accident, Evelyn thought it was just a scratch. Liam closed his eyes, a trace of blood seeping from the corner of his lips. "Go to St. Mary's Hospital. Notify Gwen. From now on, cut off all funding to Evelyn's family. Also, look into Julian." "Understood." Outside the car window, the scenery of Lakewood City blurred past. Liam knew that this counterattack for dignity and power had only just begun. 3 years of restraint was not cowardice. It was the accumulation of enough strength to destroy everything. Now the new king had returned. Those who owed him, insulted him, or betrayed him would all have to pay back every single debt with his own hands. Lakewood City Police Department, Traffic Command Center Monitoring Hall. The hall was dimly lit with only dozens of massive electronic screens flickering with cold blue light. Evelyn stood before the main console, her deep blue police uniform looking especially icy under the glow of the screens. Her complexion was poor, even pale. Since the scene at the City Hall entrance, her mind kept replaying the image of Liam getting into that Rolls-Royce. That unfamiliar feeling was like a thin steel wire tightening around her chest with a dull ache. Captain Evelyn, the high-definition road surveillance footage from the day of the accident has been retrieved, along with the cloud data from the car's dash cam. "Technician," Thea said cautiously, breaking the dead silence. Evelyn took a deep breath, her voice a bit hoarse. "Play it." The screen flickered, and the image returned to that rainy night 48 hours ago. In the footage, Liam was driving the second-hand domestic SUV, carrying Evelyn, who had just gotten off work. The rain was heavy, visibility blurry. Evelyn was sitting in the passenger seat at the time, looking down and replying to Julian's messages, not even noticing the heavy truck speeding wildly and swerving unsteadily from the side intersection. Just as the truck was about to crash into the SUV, Liam's movements in the footage were astonishingly fast. Without any hesitation, he violently turned the steering wheel a full 1.5 rotations to the left. Evelyn's pupils contracted sharply. As a seasoned traffic officer, she understood the meaning of this move all too well. In the face of an unavoidable collision, the driver chose to sacrifice the driver's seat, leaving the strongest body frame and the safest impact point for the passenger. Boom! The deafening crash was terrifying, even through the screen. The driver's side of the SUV instantly caved in a large chunk, and the shattered windshield flew off like countless bullets. In the footage, Liam's head slammed heavily into the side airbag, blood gushing instantly like a torrent, staining his entire white shirt red. Evelyn's fingers dug into the marble countertop, her nails turning blue. The surveillance continued playing. She saw Liam, after being unconscious for a few seconds, force open the already deformed door and stumble out of the car. His right hand was bent at an odd angle, seemingly broken, but as if he could not feel the pain, he crawled step by step toward the passenger side, trying to pull her, who was still unconscious. However, at that moment, Julian's silver Porsche appeared in the surveillance footage. Julian screamed, stopped the car, rushed over and hugged the now awake Evelyn. Evelyn remembered the next part clearly. She had woken up at that moment, her eyes full of panic, looking at Julian, who claimed he had almost fallen into the river to save her. Meanwhile, Liam, his face covered in blood, stood a few meters away in the shadows. In the footage, Evelyn pushed away Liam, who was trying to approach, and said something with a disgusted tone. Now, through the enhanced audio track of the surveillance, she heard what she had said at the time. She said, "Liam, stop getting in the way here. Go check Julian's car. If something happens to him, can you afford it?" Liam in the surveillance froze. His hand, half extended to check her wound, trembled violently in midair, then slowly withdrew and slipped into his blood-stained pocket. He did not say another word, just stood there quietly, like an outsider, watching her hold another man. "Captain Evelyn, do you want to keep watching?" Thea asked in a low voice, not even daring to look up at Evelyn's expression. Evelyn took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Turn it off." Evelyn spun around abruptly and strode out of the surveillance room, her steps slightly unsteady. For 3 years, she had always believed Liam was nothing more than a meek, spineless man clinging to the stability of her family. She even thought he was somewhat pathetic. So when the wealthy, witty Julian appeared, the scales in her heart unconsciously tipped. She had assumed that on the day of the car accident, Liam had simply been lucky to escape unscathed. But the truth was, he had taken the hit for her, shielding her with his own life. And she had repaid him with a resounding slap. "Liam, how many more things are you hiding from me?" Evelyn sped down the road towards Mary's hospital. All she wanted now was to find him, confront him, or make it up to him. St. Mary's Hospital was the top-tier medical institution in Lakewood. Its wards charged by the day, every nurse trained in international etiquette, and only the wealthy and powerful walked through its doors. When Evelyn arrived at the VIP waiting area, she heard a shrill, grating voice from a distance. "Liam, you ungrateful, heartless bastard. Get out here. You think hiding in this expensive hospital means I cannot find you? Where did you get the money to stay in a place like this? Did you steal the deed to my family house and pawn it off?" Evelyn's heart sank. It was her mother, Margaret. The woman stood there, clutching a Hermes bag, hands on her hips, making a scene at the entrance to the VIP corridor. Several security guards looked uneasy, but dared not forcibly remove her, intimidated by the wealthy madam act she was putting on. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Evelyn rushed over and grabbed her mother's arm. Evelyn, perfect timing. Margaret seized her daughter's hand, her face twisted with rage. "That useless loser actually dared to divorce you. Fine, let him go. But he had the nerve to hide away private savings. Look, this is St. Mary's. One night stay here costs more than half a year's worth of our food expenses. He has been eating and drinking at our house for years. Even the socks he wears were bought by you. Where did he get that kind of money? Mom, stop it. Liam was injured in the car accident. Evelyn tried to explain, but her voice was weak and feeble. Injured? I think he is just playing dead. Margaret sneered venomously. He is trying to squeeze money out of our family. No way. I'm going to make him spit it all out today, and he has to apologize to Julian. Julian said if it were not for Liam jerking the wheel that day, his car would not have spun out of control. Just as Margaret was about to charge into the ward corridor again, a cold, crisp female voice rang out from the corner of the hallway. Margaret, since you are so fond of talking about money, our legal department has quite a few bills we would like you to review. Evelyn looked up. A woman in a dark grey professional suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, walked slowly toward them. Behind her followed 8 burly men in black suits and sunglasses, each step exuding an overwhelming sense of pressure. It was Gwen, the executive chief of the Lakewood branch of the Shaolong Group, and Liam's first sharp blade after his return. And who do you think you are? Who gave you the right to speak here? Margaret, accustomed to throwing her weight around at home, eyed Gwen with disdain. I am Liam's mother-in-law. I am disciplining my family's live-in son-in-law. What business is it of yours to stick your nose in? Gwen stopped 3 steps away from Margaret, a mocking smile curling at the corner of her lips. First of all, Mr. Liam has already dissolved his marital relationship with Ms. Evelyn legally. You have no connection to Mr. Liam whatsoever. Secondly, Gwen adjusted her glasses, her gaze suddenly sharp over the past 3 years. Mr. Liam has secretly provided your family company with an interest-free loan of 380 million yuan, as well as repaid the underground casino usury debts you incurred. We have compiled all the records. If you continue to cause trouble here, Mr. Liam's instructions are that you must repay the full amount, including interest, within 3 days. Margaret's face turned deathly pale in an instant, her lips trembling. You are talking nonsense.
What sponsorship?
That is our family's own business acumen. Business acumen? Gwen let out a cold laugh, taking a document from her assistant and slapping it onto Margaret's face with a sharp crack. Your family's corporation was already insolvent 3 years ago. If Mr. Liam had not mobilized the global capital chain to force a transfusion, your whole family would be begging under a bridge right now. And here's another one. Last year, the 10 million you lost in Las Vegas, Mr. Liam settled that account too. Evelyn froze in place. She had always believed that her family's business had been thriving these past few years thanks to her father's old connections and her own authority's protection. She never knew that the man who quietly mopped the floors at home and drove her to and from work had been propping up the entire family sky behind the scenes. You slut. You must be some vixen Liam keeps on the side, deliberately coming to trick me. Margaret flew into a rage, raising her hand to slap Gwen across the face.
Slap.
A crisp sound rang out, but it was not Gwen who got hit. Gwen firmly caught Margaret's wrist and delivered a backhanded slap, striking hard across Margaret's heavily powdered face. Margaret spun around from the force, collapsing directly to the ground, clutching her cheek, stunned for a long moment. Mom. Evelyn cried out, trying to rush forward, but 2 bodyguards firmly blocked her. Captain Evelyn, out of respect for your past as Mr. Liam's wife, I will give you a piece of advice, Gwen said, looking down at Evelyn with eyes as cold as ice. Some people once missed are an abyss. Mr. Liam's patience has run out. If your family dares to pester him again, I will not hesitate to make your family's corporation vanish from Lakewood City entirely. I want to see him. Let me see Liam. Evelyn ignored her mother, staring at Gwen with a desperate, almost pleading persistence. Gwen paused for a moment as if receiving some instruction through her earpiece. Mr. Liam says to let Captain Evelyn in alone. As for this one, she glanced at Margaret, still throwing a tantrum on the floor. Throw her out. From now on at St. Mary's hospital, Evelyn's family and dogs are not allowed inside. You, how dare you? Margaret shrieked, but the bodyguards picked her up like a chicken and tossed her toward the end of the hallway. Evelyn, dazed and disheartened, followed Gwen toward the VIP ward. The further she walked, the heavier her heart grew. On both sides of the corridor, every 5 meters stood a fully armed security guard. Such a display was no less than what the mayor of Lakewood City would command. When they reached the deepest suite, Gwen stopped. "Mr. Liam is waiting for you inside." Evelyn pushed open the door. Before the massive floor-to-ceiling window, Liam sat in a loose hospital gown, draped in a black leather coat, his back to her. His right arm was heavily cast, while his left hand flipped through a document written entirely in English. Besides him, 6 or 7 elderly men in white coats stood in the room. Evelyn recognized one of them instantly. "That is the world's top brain specialist, Doctor Herman," she exclaimed. The titan of medicine, who had treated heads of state from multiple countries, was now humbly bowing, reporting something to Liam. "Mr. Liam, your internal bleeding is largely under control, but the broken rib pierced too deep into the lung. You still need rest. Additionally, regarding the global medical port layout you mentioned, we have drafted a preliminary plan," Dr. Herman said with utmost deference. Liam closed the document without turning around, merely waving his left hand lightly. The experts immediately understood and filed out, not even sparing Evelyn a glance as they passed. The room fell into a dead silence. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling onto Liam's shoulders, yet it could not dispel the suffocating chill that clung to him. "Have a seat, Captain Evelyn," Liam said. His voice was calm, devoid of the joy of reunion or the satisfaction of revenge, only a cold, businesslike indifference. Evelyn walked to his side, gazing at his pale yet sharply defined profile. She opened her mouth but found herself unable to utter even a simple, "I am sorry. Does the wound still hurt?" Evelyn finally managed to squeeze out that pointless question after a long pause. Liam turned his head, his deep eyes fixed on her calmly. "Did you check the surveillance footage, Captain Evelyn?" Evelyn lowered her head, unable to meet his gaze. I saw it." "Liam, why did you not tell me?" "If you had said earlier that the money came from you, if you had told me that the car accident that day was because you were saving me." "And what if I had?" Liam interrupted, a hint of self-mockery in his tone. "Tell you and then make you choose between saving me and saving Julian?" "Evelyn, you graduated top of your class at the police academy. Your instincts and judgment should not be this poor." Evelyn's face turned pale instantly. "Julian," he said. He was terrified. "I saw him trembling all over." "He had every reason to tremble," Liam sneered. His left hand picked up a USB drive from the table and tossed it lightly in front of Evelyn. "That is the trajectory of Julian's Porsche before the collision. Captain Evelyn, as a traffic officer, you can go back and study it carefully. Why would a car driving normally suddenly swerve toward the guardrail with no obstacles in sight? And at that angle, it made him look like he was on the brink of death without actually plunging into the river." Evelyn's head shot up. "Are you saying he did it on purpose?" "Whether he did it on purpose, you can investigate yourself. But one thing is certain. The truck that caused our accident belongs to a transport company that received a massive overseas transfer just half a month ago, and the account's location matches the city where Julian studied abroad." Liam stood up. Though his body was still weak, his 185-centimeter frame exuded a pressure that made Evelyn shudder. He walked over to her, extended his left hand, and lightly brushed the insignia on her police uniform. "Evelyn, you have been in this position for too long. It seems you have forgotten that the hardest thing to measure in this world is the human heart. You thought Julian was your savior, but in reality he might just be a madman trying to use you to swallow your family or even get rid of me. Impossible." "Julian does not have the guts," Evelyn muttered to herself, but even she could hear the wavering in her own voice. "Whether he has the guts or not, you will see the answer at tomorrow night's Lakewood business banquet." Liam sat back down in his chair, closed his eyes to rest, and spoke with a distant tone. "Now you can leave. I am tired." Evelyn looked at this man once so familiar to her. He was right in front of her, yet it felt like there was an insurmountable distance between them. "Liam, can we really not go back?" Liam did not open his eyes, but a cold curve formed at the corner of his lips. "Evelyn, the moment we walked out of City Hall, we were already in two different worlds. Oh, and tell your mother for me. Do not cause trouble at St. Mary's again, because next time Gwen might not just slap her. She might slap the entire future of your family." When Evelyn walked out of the hospital room, it felt as though her soul had been drained from her body. The sunlight in the corridor was blinding, yet she felt an icy chill all over. Just as she was about to step into the elevator, her phone vibrated violently. It was Julian calling. "Evelyn, where are you?" "For tomorrow night's banquet, I specially ordered $1 million gown for you. We are going to steal the show. And that, Mr. Liam will be there too. I am confident I can win him over." Listening to Julian's excited voice on the phone, Evelyn suddenly felt a wave of nausea. She glanced at the USB drive in her hand, her gaze sharpening. The truth was being peeled back, layer by layer, and the world she thought she knew was crumbling inch by inch under Liam's cold stare. The Golden Hall of the Lakewood Peninsula Hotel. This was the heart of power in Lakewood, every inch of marble floor seemingly soaked in the scent of money. Tonight, a high-profile charity business gala was underway, but anyone with half a brain knew the charity was just a front. The real main event was the legendary big shot making his return, the mysterious Mr. Liam, the shadowy controller of the Shaolong Group's Lakewood branch. Tonight, he would choose his first strategic partner in the city. Evelyn wore a special security uniform, the tactical belt cinching her slender yet rigid silhouette. As tonight's head of security, she stood on the second-floor circular corridor, her sharp eyes scanning the entire venue. Yet her gaze involuntarily drifted to her family members huddled in a corner of the first-floor lobby. Her father, Victor, was currently weaving through the guests with a sycophantic smile plastered on his face. That pathetic, groveling demeanor stirred a pang of inexplicable bitterness and unease in Evelyn. Her family's business had indeed hit serious trouble. They had relied on Liam's covert blood transfusions to maintain a facade of respectability, but with his withdrawal of funds after the divorce, that flimsy veil was being ripped away fast. "Victor, I heard your family's cash flow is a bit tight lately. If you cannot secure Mr. Liam's investment tonight, you might not even make next month's interest payments, right?" a rival competitor said, raising his glass with a sarcastic tone as he passed by. Victor rubbed his hands awkwardly. "Not at all, not at all. Evelyn has a close relationship with Julian from Julian's family. Julian has already put in a word with Mr. Liam. Tonight's investment, my family is a shoo-in." Not far away, Julian was surrounded by a group of second-tier wealthy heirs. He wore an expensive sapphire blue suit, swirling a glass of champagne with an air of smug confidence. "Young Master Julian, when Mr. Liam comes out later, you have got to put in a good word for us." "Easy, easy," Julian replied, basking in his glory, but his gaze drifted past the crowd, greedily fixating on Evelyn upstairs, then scanning the room as if searching for an outlet for his ego. Suddenly, a slight commotion rippled at the entrance of the hall. I had shed my plain casual clothes and now wore a custom-made jet black suit appearing at the door. The suit was impeccably tailored, perfectly outlining my cold, imposing figure, though my right hand remained slightly stiff, hidden inside the sleeve. The bone-deep aura of authority, the pressure of someone long accustomed to power, made the security guard hesitate for a beat before even checking my invitation. Ignoring the complex stares around me, I strode straight toward the lounge area. Well, if it is not my family's former house husband, Liam," a grating voice rang out. Julian, flanked by a few cronies, swarmed around me like hyenas catching the scent of blood. He looked me up and down, letting out a sneer. "Where did you rent that suit?" "Must have cost you a pretty penny." Liam, you do not actually think that after the divorce throwing on a decent piece of fabric gets you into this circle, do you? The price of a ticket here alone would cover 3 years of grocery shopping for you back in my family. Victor heard the commotion and walked over. Seeing it was me, his face instantly darkened. Liam, what are you doing here? Have you not embarrassed my family enough? Get the hell out of here before you offend the distinguished guests arriving soon. I looked calmly at Victor, the man I had called Dad for 3 years, now staring at me with nothing but undisguised disgust. I am here to take back what is mine, I said flatly. Your things? Every penny of my family was earned by Evelyn through hard work. You are a kept man. What could possibly be yours? Before Victor could speak further, Margaret appeared from somewhere. The swelling on her face from the beating at St. Mary's Hospital still visible, now twisted and grotesque under a thick layer of foundation. Oh, I get it now. You saw our family is about to get rich, so you came crawling back to beg for a remarriage, did you not? Let me tell you, no way. I ignored her ranting, letting my gaze sweep past the crowd to Evelyn, who stood behind the railing on the second floor. She was staring at me intently, her eyes a mix of shock, complexity, and a hint of panic she had not even realized herself. Master Julian, this stray dog sneaked in for free food. Why not just have security throw him out? One of Julian's lackeys suggested. Julian adjusted his bow tie with a pompous air and raised his voice. Naturally, but since brother Liam wants to see the world, I am not one to deny him. Liam, if you kneel right here, admit you are a thief who stole from my family, and swear never to pester Evelyn again, I will reward you with a chance to clean the glasses after the banquet. How about that? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Liam, just leave while you can. Evelyn finally could not hold back, rushing down from the second floor. She stood before me, her voice low and conflicted. This is not where you belong. Julian is tight with Mr. Liam's people now. He will really humiliate you. I looked at her, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. Captain Evelyn, are you afraid I will be embarrassed, or afraid I will shatter your perfect life? Evelyn was at a loss for words. Just then, the heavy rosewood doors at the front of the hall slowly swung open. The entire venue fell into instant silence. Charles, the president of the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce, a man who usually strutted like a tyrant on the news, now hunched his back like a servant, humbly guiding a group of people into the venue. He is here. Mr. Liam is here. Julian excitedly straightened his clothes, his eyes blazing with fervor, dragging Victor forward. Evelyn, Uncle Victor, hurry, come with me to welcome Mr. Liam. This is the moment that decides our family's fate. Evelyn was pulled and shoved to the front of the crowd. Charles stepped up to the microphone, his expression solemn and respectful. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have the honor of hosting Mr. Liam of the Shaolong Group. Mr. Liam has returned to Lakewood to select a deep investment plan. Now, let us welcome Mr. Liam to the stage. All eyes locked onto the entrance, yet no new big shot appeared at the door. Charles scanned the room, his gaze finally landing on the corner of the hall, on the figure being mocked by the crowd and driven away by Evelyn's family. He jogged over, weaving through the crowd in a dead silence, and stopped abruptly before me. Under the horrified stares of everyone, he bowed deeply at a 90-degree angle. Mr. Liam, everything is ready. Please take the stage to oversee the proceedings. In that moment, the entire golden hall seemed to have its mute button pressed. The champagne glass in Julian's hand clattered to the floor, shattering into pieces. The splashing liquid stained his $1 million suit, but he did not notice. His eyes were bulging like a dead fish, his lips trembling violently. Victor's hand, extended for a handshake, froze mid-air like a ridiculous statue. And Evelyn, she felt as if a white light had exploded in her brain, all her understanding crumbling in that single second. Liam, the man who washed her clothes every day, made her hangover soup, and was scolded by her as mediocre and unambitious. He was the master of the Shaolong Group who could summon clouds and rain with a flick of his hand. I adjusted my cuffs, ignoring the petrified crowd around me, as I ascended the steps one by one. Each crisp footfall on the marble struck like a hammer against the hearts of Evelyn's family. I took the microphone from Charles and stood at the very center of the spotlight. Someone just asked what I came to take back. I swept my gaze across the room, letting it linger for a moment on the faces of Evelyn's family. The coldness in my eyes nearly caused Margaret to faint on the spot. 3 years ago, I was entrusted with a task and hid myself within your family. I gave you countless chances to rise to the top, but you seem to prefer living in a dream. I pulled a dark gold folder from my chest. It was the investment proposal that Evelyn's family had begged and scraped for, using every connection they had to submit. This proposal, Julian said he had it in the bag. I looked at Julian, whose face was deathly pale in the audience. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor with a hissing sound from his throat, unable to utter a single word. Before the eyes of the city's elite, I tore the document into shreds with an expressionless face. The white paper fragments fluttered down like a belated memorial. From this moment on, all supply chains in Lakewood related to the Shaolong Group are strictly forbidden from any business dealings with Evelyn's family and Julian's family. Anyone who disobeys will be my enemy. Victor's body trembled violently. He could not catch his breath and collapsed into Margaret's arms. I set down the microphone and prepared to leave the stage. Liam. Evelyn's voice, choked with tears, pierced the hall like a shard of glass. She pushed past the bodyguards, rushed to the bottom of the steps, and looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. You have been lying to me all along, have you not? You watched me struggle like a fool out there, watched me beg for my family's business, and you stood behind me, cold and indifferent, watching me fall into the abyss. Did you think it was fun? I stopped and looked down at her from above. Evelyn, 3 years ago, I gave your family a chance to change their fate. My voice was low but carried a bone-chilling coldness. It was an exclusive authorization for a trade deal. If you had signed it, your family would now be the top family in Lakewood City. But on the day I handed the contract to your father, you were out celebrating Julian's birthday. Your father did not even glance at it. He threw it into the shredder and called me a delusional waste. Evelyn froze, her mind racing, digging through her memories to unearth that detail. From that day on, I knew your family did not deserve that future. I walked past her toward the backstage monitoring room. Liam, stop. You saved my life, and I cleared your name, but you cannot destroy my family like this. Evelyn screamed hysterically behind me. I did not look back. It was not me who destroyed your family. It was their greed, ignorance, and arrogance. Entering the monitoring room, Gwen was already waiting. Master, we have traced the changes in Julian's private accounts. Just as you predicted, before the banquet began, he had a secret meeting with a senior executive of Evelyn's family involving an illegal transfer of their core technology. Also, regarding the disappearance of that opportunity 3 years ago, I found evidence. Victor did not ignore the contract. He swapped it out and secretly sold it to the family's sworn enemy, pocketing the money to cover his gambling debts. I stared at the screen, where Victor's face was a mix of despair and terror. My eyes were ice cold. Evelyn thinks her family is just mediocre. She does not realize this family is rotten to the core. I lit a cigarette, watching the smoke rise in front of the monitors. Notify Hank. The legal process can begin. I want Julian to leave tonight with more than just humiliation. He will carry shackles for the rest of his life. Understood. On the screen, the banquet hall was in chaos. Evelyn was slumped helplessly at the foot of the steps, while Julian was attempting to sneak out of the venue. I stubbed out my cigarette. The real show was only just entering its second act. Lakewood City Traffic Police Brigade, Interrogation Room 3. This was a place Evelyn once commanded with absolute authority. She was the Ice Queen, the embodiment of discipline and justice. But today, the air in the interrogation room was suffocatingly heavy. The 8 characters on the wall, leniency for confession, severity for resistance, glared harshly under the stark, shadowless lights. I sat in the shadows across from the interrogation table, draped in a dark cashmere coat, my fingertips tapping lightly against the cold surface. To my left, Julian was cuffed to a specialized interrogation chair. His once pristine suit was now crumpled, cold sweat dripping from his temples and pooling into a small puddle on the table. Evelyn, help me. This must be a misunderstanding. Liam is getting back at me. He is fabricating evidence. Julian screamed frantically at the one-way glass of the interrogation room. He knew Evelyn was watching from behind it. I ignored his barking and turned my gaze to the man beside me who was organizing documents. That was Hank, known in legal circles as the Butcher. He never took a case with less than a 99% chance of winning. Once he struck, his opponents did not just lose everything. They usually got a complimentary luxury iron bar package. "Master Liam, the evidence chain is complete," Hank said, his voice devoid of emotion. He slid a thick file across the table to Julian. "Mr. Julian, based on the evidence we have gathered, the traffic accident 3 days ago was no accident. A week before the incident, you transferred 2 million yuan to the wife of the truck driver through an offshore account. Additionally, 3 days before the crash, your Porsche underwent precision modifications to its braking system, ensuring that upon high-speed impact, the dashcam would trigger its victim protection mode. By legal definition, this constitutes insurance fraud and attempted manslaughter. You are lying." "Bullshit." Julian's voice was shrill, his eyes bloodshot. "I did it to save Evelyn. I am the hero." "Hero?" I finally spoke, slowly rising to my feet. I walked over to Julian, leaning down to lock eyes with him. Those eyes, once filled with tenderness and restraint, were now as deep as an abyss, carrying a bone-chilling coldness. "Julian, your biggest mistake was underestimating my patience and overestimating your own intelligence. Did you think the rain that night could wash away every trace? You did not know that all the high-definition cameras on that stretch of road had been upgraded 6 months ago by a tech subsidiary of the Shaolong Group. You thought you had chosen a blind spot, but under our infrared lenses, every move you made was as obvious as a clown performing in broad daylight." I turned to look at the one-way glass, my voice low but loud enough for the person behind it to hear clearly. "Captain Evelyn, do you want to keep watching?" The door to the interrogation room swung open. Evelyn walked in, her steps heavy, each one as if treading on knives. She held a freshly delivered internal memo, her face paler than paper. "Liam, the provincial department, just called." Evelyn looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "They said that the 5 major unsolved cases I handled over the past 3 years were only cracked because a mysterious expert panel provided core data support behind the scenes. And now, because that panel has revoked all authorization proofs, those 5 first-class and second-class merit awards are facing re-evaluation." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "That expert panel, it was yours too, was it not?" I said nothing, just stared at her coldly. "Why?" Evelyn suddenly broke down. She slammed her hand on the table and shouted at me. "You are clearly this powerful. You could stand in the sunlight and fight alongside me. Why do you pretend to be useless? Why do you watch me like a joke, accepting honors that do not belong to me with a clear conscience? Are you just watching the show? Watching your wife dance in the palm of your hand? Does that give you a sense of accomplishment? Honors that do not belong to you?" I let out a cold laugh, my gaze sharpening. "Evelyn, when you were drinking red wine at the celebration banquet, accepting compliments from your colleagues, but locking me out, saying that I, the grocery shopping husband reeking of cooking oil, would embarrass you. Did you ever stop to think where those achievements came from?" I pointed at Julian, my tone growing icier. "When you sneered at me in the hospital for the sake of this man who meticulously orchestrated a murder, did you ever consider that if I had not been shielding you from all the open and covert attacks of your family for the past 3 years, you, the so-called goddess of the police force, would have been dragged down by your family's pile of rotten debts long ago?" Evelyn staggered, nearly falling. For 3 years, she had believed she was heaven's favored daughter, a miracle of the police force. She even thought Liam was not good enough for her, that he was too lowly and lacked ambition. But the truth was that Liam had channeled all the brilliance onto her while hiding in the shadows, becoming her shadow, her shield, and she had shattered that shield with her own hands. Julian, now it is your turn. I stopped looking at Evelyn and refocused on Julian. Liam, you cannot kill me. This is a society governed by law. Julian recoiled in terror. Evelyn, save me. I did all this for you. I just loved you too much. I wanted you to see that I am more useful than Liam. Love. I snapped my fingers. Hank immediately turned on the multimedia projector in the interrogation room. On the screen appeared not the car accident, but secret recordings and videos of Julian abroad. In the video, Julian was holding a seductive foreign woman, swirling a glass of red wine, his face full of venom. That Evelyn woman is just a tool. Once I have dealt with her family, gotten my hands on Victor's technical patent, and killed off that live-in son-in-law Liam, Evelyn will have no choice but to obey me. Then I will transfer her family's assets and return to the country. Who would even remember who she is? Julian burst into manic laughter in the video. Dead silence filled the interrogation room. Evelyn stared at the video, looking as if she had been struck by lightning. The man she had always regarded as her true love, her confidant, had been treating her as nothing more than a stepping stone to be discarded at will. This is your love, I said, looking at Julian. Hank, as for my family's patent, Victor mortgaged it to me 3 days ago for a paltry $5 million to cover his gambling debts. In other words, the thing you schemed so hard to get is now sitting in my trash bin. No, impossible. Uncle Victor promised me. Julian collapsed into his chair, his gaze completely hollow. Oh, and one more thing. I leaned down and whispered in his ear. Did you think your tens of millions in overseas investments were paying off? Actually, the financial advisor handling your portfolio works for me. Right now, not only are you going to prison, but you also owe the Shaolong Group $300 million in debt. Even if you die in prison, your family will never be able to pay off that debt because of your joint guarantee. Julian let out a desperate howl, foaming at the mouth before fainting on the spot. Take him away. I waved my hand. Several black-suited bodyguards who had been waiting, along with the supervising officers outside, entered and dragged Julian out of the interrogation room like a dead dog. Only Evelyn and I remained in the room. She stood there, dazed. The police uniform she once wore with pride now felt heavier than 1,000 pounds, pressing down on her so she could not lift her head. Liam, I was wrong. She finally broke down crying. Tears smeared her makeup, making her look utterly pathetic. Please, give me one more chance. I do not want those honors anymore, and I do not want my family either. Can we remarry? Let us go back to that home. I will cook for you every day from now on. I will make up for all the 3 years I owed you. I walked up to her, reaching out my hand as if to pat her head like I used to. A flicker of hope lit up in Evelyn's eyes, and she tremblingly closed them, waiting for that familiar touch. But my hand only straightened her crooked collar pin. Captain Evelyn, this uniform no longer suits you, I said flatly, without a trace of emotion. You violated police discipline by illegally accessing surveillance footage for Julian. I have already submitted a signed complaint to the inspectorate. Evelyn, as a citizen, I am asserting my rights as a victim. I demand a fair judgment. From today onward, you are no longer the traffic police captain. You are just a public official under investigation. You are going to destroy my career with your own hands. Evelyn stared at me in disbelief. It was not me who destroyed your career. It was you. I turned and walked toward the door, my black trench coat cutting a cold arc through the air. When you saved Julian back then, you destroyed the last shred of affection I had for you. Now I am just taking back everything that was never rightfully yours. Liam, how can you be so heartless? Evelyn screamed hysterically behind me. I did not look back. Heartless. If I were truly heartless, I would have let go of the steering wheel the moment the crash happened, sending you and Julian straight to meet your maker. I stepped out of the brigade headquarters. The air outside was cool and refreshing like water. Gwen was waiting by the car, handing me the latest report. Master, Victor is already surrounded by debt collectors in the villa. All of Evelyn's family properties, vehicles and their shares have been seized and sealed by the court 10 minutes ago. Also, the video of old Arthur's final testament has been fully restored. I took the tablet and watched the footage of the kind old man. It was the scene from 3 years ago, just before old Arthur passed away. Master, the last words old Arthur wanted to say to you might not be what you imagined, Gwen said quietly. I stared at the screen, my fingertips trembling slightly. Take me to the family's old mansion, I ordered coldly. That was where it all began, and it would be where it all ended. What Evelyn's family owed me was not just those 3 years of wasted youth and endurance. The truth hidden under the guise of repaying a favor was long overdue to be fully exposed. The rain in Lakewood had always been unreasonable. It had started last night, and by this evening showed no signs of letting up. Instead, it grew even more violent. Huge raindrops slammed against the all-glass curtain wall of the Shaolong Group headquarters, producing a dull, dense, crackling sound like thousands of war drums beating in unison. I stood at the top floor of the building, 300 meters above sea level, in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows. This was the highest point in Lakewood. Looking down, the city's neon lights blurred and fractured through the rain like a shattered palette. Once I thought this city was vast, vast enough to hide 3 years of my mediocrity. Now I realized it was small, so small that with just a flick of my fingers, I could wipe out a few families entirely. Young master, the ceremony starts in 10 minutes. Gwen walked up behind me holding a warm cup of black coffee. The guests downstairs have all arrived. Every influential figure in Lakewood City's political and business circles wants to witness the coronation of the new king at this very moment. I took the coffee, feeling the warmth of the porcelain cup through my fingertips, but my gaze remained fixed on the street below, teeming like an ant hill. "Is she here?" I asked flatly. Gwen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "She is downstairs. The family's old mansion was forcibly sealed off this afternoon. Victor has been taken in for investigation on charges of illegally transferring technology patents and long-term involvement in underground gambling." Margaret threw a tantrum at the old mansion's gate, but was taken away by several creditors for a talk. As for Evelyn, she stood in the rain for 3 hours. I let out a cold laugh and said nothing. Most importantly, Gwen lowered her voice. "She is wearing the wedding dress she married you in 3 years ago. It is outdated now and soaked through by the rain, but she is kneeling at the company's main entrance, refusing to leave no matter who tries to persuade her." I took a sip of the coffee, the bitterness spreading across my tongue. Wearing a wedding dress to beg for mercy. Evelyn, you have fallen into the cliché after all. 3 years ago, you thought this dress was a shackle binding your flight. 3 years later, you cling to it as a lifeline to salvage your power. I set down the coffee cup, my voice as cold as the rain outside the window. "Let her come up. I will meet her on the rooftop terrace. At the highest point in Lakewood City, I will hold a proper funeral for this absurd past." On the top floor terrace of the skyscraper, the wind howled fiercely. When Evelyn appeared in my line of sight, I barely recognized her. The once proud, aloof traffic police captain, always in her crisp uniform, was gone. In her place stood a drenched, disheveled woman. The pristine white wedding dress was now heavy and gray, soaked through by the rain, dragging behind her like a rotting cloth. Her hair clung messily to her face, her once delicate features purple from the cold wind. She swayed unsteadily. Behind her, the gaze of Lakewood City's elite bore down. My ceremony had arranged a fully transparent observation deck, and now countless eyes filled with mockery, pity, and anticipation were fixed on this former goddess of Lakewood. "Liam, Liam." Evelyn's voice was shattered by the wind. She staggered toward me, each step accompanied by the dull thud of her soaked shoes. I stood under the awning, hands clasped behind my back. My black suit was untouched by a single drop of rain, a cruel contrast to her disheveled state. "Liam, I beg you, let my family go." Suddenly, her legs gave way and she fell heavily to her knees 5 meters away from me. The sound of her knees hitting the concrete was still audible through the wind. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I should not have treated you like that before. I should not have taken your efforts for granted. I should not have abandoned you during the car accident. She sobbed heart-wrenchingly, tears and rain mingling together. Tell me, what do you want? As long as you let my father go and give my family a way out, I will do anything. She looked up abruptly, a desperate madness in her eyes. I can quit being a police officer. I can stay home every day like before. I can give you children. I swear I will listen to you for the rest of my life. Please give me back the Liam I used to know, okay? I looked at her, feeling not a single ripple in my heart, not even the thrill of revenge, only a deep, hollow weariness. Evelyn, are you misunderstanding something? I stepped out from under the awning, letting the rain soak my coat as I looked down at her from above. Do you think I destroyed your family because I still hate you? Because I still care about your betrayal back then? She froze, staring at me blankly. You are wrong. I crouched down, meeting her eyes filled with pleading. I destroyed your family because it was a cancer embedded in Lakewood City's commercial chain. Victor's greed, Julian's venom, and your arrogance. Even without me, all of this would have erupted at some point. I just accelerated the process. As for you, I reached out my fingertip, lightly lifting the tarnished, cheap brooch pinned to her chest. Did you think wearing this wedding dress would rekindle some warmth deep inside me? Evelyn, your thirst for power has even crushed your dignity. That is what I despise most about you. No, that is not true.
I love you, Liam.
I really do love you. She struggled to grab the hem of my coat, but I sidestepped, dodging her grasp. Love? I stood up, letting out a mocking laugh. Evelyn, you do not even know what love is. What you loved was the shadow who would always tolerate you, serve you, provide emotional value without expecting anything in return. When you realized that shadow was actually a god you could never reach, your love came belatedly. That is not love. It is resentment, fear of loss. I turned and walked toward the edge of the rooftop, where a massive LED screen sat in standby mode. Master, the video is ready. Gwen appeared beside me, holding a remote control. Play it. Some truths, now that we are at the end, do not need to be hidden anymore. The screen lit up. It was 3 years ago in the study of the family's old mansion, the day before old Arthur passed away. The footage was a bit blurry, but the kind old man's voice was crystal clear. In the video, old Arthur was holding my hand, his eyes sharp, nothing like those of a confused patient. Liam, I have put you through a lot, the old master in the video sighed. I know who you are, the crown prince of the Shaolong Group, hiding your identity and coming to Lakewood City to uncover the truth behind your mother's car accident years ago. It was me, an old man, who used a life-saving favor I did for your father long ago to force you to stay by Evelyn's side. Evelyn froze, staring at the screen, forgetting to breathe. The old master in the video continued, Evelyn was spoiled by me. She looks down on everyone but cannot see through anyone's heart. I was afraid that after I was gone, someone like Julian would devour her completely. Liam, I beg you, protect her for 3 years. These 3 years count as repayment for my family's favor. After 3 years, if she still does not get it, if you still decide to leave, then my family deserves its fate. Do not feel guilty. It is the path she chose. The video ended abruptly. I turned around and looked at Evelyn, whose face was ashen. Did you hear that clearly? I said calmly, these 3 years of marriage were essentially a transaction. I endured 3 years of humiliation and protected your family to repay old Arthur for saving my father's life. I saved you, took care of you, endured your family's insults, not because I was groveling, but because I was fulfilling a contract. So the moment I walked out of City Hall, the contract ended. I do not owe your family anything, and I certainly do not owe you, Evelyn, any feelings. So that is how it is, Evelyn muttered, utterly lost. The so-called marriage of gratitude she had always prided herself on turned out to be a shield her grandfather had bought with his dignity. And she, under that very shield, had trampled without mercy on the only person who could save her life. Liam, I am begging you for the last time. She slumped in a puddle, her wedding dress completely stained black by the mud. Even if there is no love, for Grandpa's sake, do not let my father go to prison. He is old, he cannot take it. I have already handed over all the evidence of Victor's illegal embezzlement of public funds and his collusion with Julian to the police, I said coldly, looking at her. The law is just, Evelyn. As a former police officer, you should know that better than I do. Your family owes the investors of Lakewood. That debt must be repaid. And Victor owes the law. That debt must be repaid too. I did not look at her again. I turned and walked toward the entrance to the rooftop. Liam, do you really have to be this ruthless? She screamed behind me, her voice tearing through the air. I stopped but did not turn around. Evelyn, this is the truest logic of a male power fantasy. When dignity is trampled to the breaking point, counterattack no longer needs mercy. You should be grateful that I only took your future and your family fortune, and did not leave you completely in the dark, like you did to me after your car accident. I stepped into the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, I caught my last glimpse of Evelyn. She was wearing that ridiculous wedding dress, sitting alone on the rain-lashed rooftop, surrounded by the most dazzling backdrop of Lakewood, yet it made her look like a ghost abandoned by the times. On the first floor of the building, the celebration officially began. I changed into a dark gold suit and walked onto the stage under the gaze of the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, from today onward, there is no longer Evelyn's family or Julian's family in Lakewood. The Lakewood branch of the Shaolong Group will be officially renamed the Shaolong Global Strategic Center. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. I took the champagne handed to me by Uncle Sam and gazed out at the river in the distance. The storm in Lakewood had subsided, but my journey was just beginning. The challenge letters from several old-line financial conglomerates overseas were already sitting on my desk. The games there would be far more thrilling than those in this small Lakewood. Power, wealth, dignity, what I had lost, I had already reclaimed tenfold. What I wanted in the future, I would forge with my own hands. As for Evelyn, as for those 3 years filled with the smell of cooking oil and humiliation, let them rot completely in the mud of Lakewood, washed away by this rain. As I walked out of the hall, Uncle Sam opened a black umbrella for me. Young master, the next stop is London. The private jet is ready. Let us go. I got into the Rolls-Royce and the window slowly rose. The windshield wipers swung rhythmically, wiping away the last traces of water on the glass. Before me, the world was clear and bright.